Sleep is arguably one of the most important things that we can give to our body. But if we know that, why do we still argue with ourselves whether or not we can function off of 5 hours of sleep rather than getting the recommended 8 hours? To discuss the impact that sleep has on our health, we are joined by Sanford Health Pediatric Sleep Specialist, Dr. Ivedi Sethi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about this, and you said this is... You're generalizing today. So just so everybody knows, this is kind of a generalized answers, but
That's
you
right.
would need to see people specifically.
That's right.
And we're not talking necessarily about pediatrics either today.
Correct.
So just wanted to kind of mention
Right.
that as well, Dr. Sethi. So do you find that people are more exhausted these days? And why?
That's right. So
They
I've
are.
been working for Sanford for about 8 years now, and I see that sleep deprivation is getting more and more common than what it used to be before. It's not only in pediatrics. I mean, I think even in adult population, it's getting more and more worse.
Okay.
And the recent data, if you look into them, every time we get a newer and newer data, we know that more and more people are exhausted because of sleep deprivation, and most of it comes actually from voluntary sleep deprivation, whether due to their lifestyle changes or work obligations, or in teenagers it's actually much more than in adults actually, just because of how the world is running for racing nowadays.
Sure.
So they have no time. They're involved into sports, they're into education, they're taking college courses previously, so they're really extremely busy, and they get only about like 5.5, 6 hours of sleep when they should be getting about 9 hours of
Yes,
sleep.
because they're still growing, number
That's
one.
right.
Their brains are still developing too. I mean, all of that, correct?
That's right.
Yes, I know. I think back to my own teenage years as well as my children, and yeah, they're up late studying and
That's
all
right.
of that. So
That's right.
I don't want to say overscheduled, but I think some of us probably could say that about our, that
That's
we're
right.
overscheduled,
That's right.
whether it's our children or even ourselves.
Correct.
Yeah. How many hours? 8 hours? 7 to 8 that you recommend?
The National Sleep Foundation says for adults about 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but I always fix on 8 hours of sleep because once you go to bed, I mean, it's not possible for you to fall asleep just like that.
Right.
It takes some time, and there are possibles that you might wake up a couple of times in the middle of the night, you go to bathroom and come back, and there is some wastage of time. So I would expect 8 hours of sleep in an adult.
Okay.
And obviously it gets much longer as you keep going down with the age.
Okay, that's good to know. But what causes people disturbed sleep? So, and I was wondering too, does age, I mean, as we change, as not just our lifestyles change, but as our bodies are changing and things like that, or maybe it's a seasonal change, I don't even know. That's why I want you to share with us, what are some of the causes that people, of this sleep deprivation?
Okay. So, the most common cause is actually because, as I said before, in adults, it's actually work obligations or, their lifestyle changes too.
Right.
And many of them, they still have TV in their room, so they want to watch TV. That's going to definitely disturb their sleep, whether they may take a longer time to fall asleep, or in some cases, they don't take longer time to fall asleep, but their sleep is continuously disturbed through the night. So technology, screen exposure, because of the blue light is also a big deal. Now, apart from that, what recently I have been seeing is more and more of behavioral issues, especially with respect to anxiety and depression. Now, anxiety is very common nowadays because of how the lifestyle is nowadays. And if you're worried about, if you have any mental stress because of that, then it's almost impossible for you to fall asleep very easily. So that acute stress has to go away.
Right.
In some cases, it's a medical problem. I mean, they have a body pain, they have asthma, they have, some other issues, so which is actually leading them to insomnia. So they wake up and it's hard for them to fall asleep.
Do you have a few tips for us before I let you go?
Oh yeah, I mean, for sleep hygiene is the most important thing that we should follow. So whatever duration of sleep we get, at least we should try to get a good sleep with that. So when it comes to sleep hygiene, you should follow good sleep, bedtime and good wake up time. But before bedtime, you should have a very good bedtime routine, because that gives a cue to the brain so you can fall asleep easily. So no caffeine, no alcohol, few hours before bedtime would always help. No too much of physical stress like sports and exercise where you're sweating excessively should not be done too. So once you go to bed, and then you try to stay in the bed for about 20-30 minutes before you fall asleep, and then try to be in the bed as long as possible until you wake up in the morning. So keeping that same bedtime and wake up time is extremely important, and no changes just because it's a weekend.
Alrighty, well, lots more tips I'm sure, but if anybody has anything specific that they need, they need to probably go see their physician, correct?
That's right.
All
That's
right.
right.
Dr. Sethi, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Coming up on today's show, when students were learning remotely last year, library books were quarantined at home with them. Straight ahead, how you can help restock school library shelves.